Imagine for a moment the tools you rely on most. The ones designed to keep you safe, the very devices meant to protect your life or maybe the lives of others, suddenly come under this intense scrutiny.
Right.
Not from some external threat, but from this really shocking accusation that they are inherently, fundamentally unsafe,
Yeah.
despite being super popular.
Yeah, despite everyone having them,
Simply,
ostensibly.
what happens when that trust is just shattered? And maybe even worse, what if the very sources you depend on for unbiased, factual information about these critical tools are, well, accused of not telling you the complete story?
Hmm.
Maybe even deliberately obscuring the truth.
That's a heavy thought.
It really is. And that's the high-stakes scenario we're kind of unpacking today. A situation that has sent genuine shockwaves through a particular industry. Our deep dive today centers on a specific firearm that, honestly, for years held a truly sterling reputation. It was lauded as a pinnacle of modern design. The SIG Sauer P320 pistol. It was innovative, incredibly popular, widely adopted by civilians, law enforcement, you name it.
It really felt like the cutting edge for a while there.
For many, it absolutely represented that.
But then, almost, it felt like overnight, this dramatic counter-narrative just exploded onto the scene, and it culminated in an absolutely unprecedented move from a company called Valortec.
Right, Valortec.
In December 2023, Valortec, they're a pretty prominent and respected firearms training company, they made this bold, very public, and honestly financially risky decision.
Huge risk.
They announced a total, unequivocal ban on the SIG Sauer P320. And not just, for certain situations. From all their classes, every single one of their training ranges, every program they offer, period.
Wow. So not a suggestion, a ban.
No, this wasn't some minor tweak to their policy. It was a profound public declaration. And they rooted it in a principle they articulate with stark clarity. They said, your life and safety come first, no matter what it costs us.
That's a powerful stance.
It is. And it immediately signals that the perceived stakes here are incredibly deeply high.
And to really get the full weight of this decision right, and to understand the dramatic claims behind it, we're digging into a compelling and, let's be honest, it's a highly opinionated article published directly by Valortec themselves.
Yeah, it doesn't pull punches.
Not at all. It's titled, quite provocatively, Valortec Bans the SIG P320, Safety Over Sales. So for this deep dive, we're going to meticulously unpack their detailed claims, their specific arguments, and the very pointed accusations they make against, well, certain influential parts of the firearms industry.
Okay. So our mission today for you listening is basically to guide you through Valortec's perspective as they laid it out in their own words. We'll try to uncover the specific reasons behind their controversial ban. We'll examine the alleged track record of P320, at least through their eyes.
Right, from their source material.
Exactly. We'll delve into Valortec's accusations of industry pushback, the stuff driven by financial interests. And finally, we'll consider the significant implications of Valortec's whole safety over sales philosophy. For the broader firearms community, yes, but really for any industry where consumer trust and product safety are just paramount.
Yeah, it has a wider resonance.
For sure. This deep dive is designed to give you a shortcut to understanding a complex and, let's face it, highly charged issue, giving you the critical details and the why it matters all in one go.
All right, let's unpack this. So let's start by really understanding just how high the P320 was placed on a pedestal initially. Valortec's article specifically mentions it was hailed as the future of striker-fired pistols.
That's a big claim.
It is. That's not just some catchy marketing slogan. It carries significant weight in the firearms world. For our listeners who might not be deep in the weeds of firearm mechanics, can you maybe break down what striker-fired means and why that designation was such high praise for the P320 back then?
Absolutely. So when a pistol is described as striker-fired, it's all about its internal firing mechanism. Unlike, say, older hammer-fired pistols, the ones with an external or even internal hammer that physically strikes a firing pin.
Right, the classic look sometimes.
Yeah. Striker-fired handguns use a spring-loaded firing pin, they call it a striker, that moves forward under spring tension when you pull the trigger, and that directly hits the cartridge primer, makes it go bang.
Okay.
The P320, like a lot of modern pistols, adopted this system, and the appeal is, well, it's multifaceted. It often gives you a more consistent and maybe lighter trigger pull compared to traditional double-action hammer systems. A lot of shooters prefer that for accuracy, ease of use.
Makes sense.
Plus, you usually have fewer external parts, fewer things sticking out. which means fewer snag points on clothing or gear, right?
Hmm.
Which makes them pretty ideal for concealed carry or duty holsters.
Practical advantages.
Definitely. And this design often simplifies manufacturing too, which can lead to more affordable prices, maybe easier maintenance. So when the P320 came out, you had its modularity that was a huge selling point. Its ergonomics, its perceived reliability, and its striker-fired design. All that combined just created this immense buzz.
Exactly. And to be branded as the future of anything, well, that suggests groundbreaking innovation, right? Superior performance, widespread acceptance. You have to think about the marketing machine behind a launch like that.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking full-page, glossy ads in basically every major gun magazine. Primetime placement at the big industry trade shows like SHOT Show. You've got glowing reviews from prominent competitive shooters who are basically brand ambassadors.
Like implementers?
Right, and early endorsements from influential YouTube firearms channels praising its modularity, those customizable grip modules, its initial, perceived reliability. The P320 even landed significant contracts with law enforcement agencies and, like we'll get into later, parts of the U.S. military.
Big contracts.
Huge. So this created this really powerful narrative of a cutting-edge, super dependable firearm.
And this widespread acclaim, this sort of deep-seated belief in the P320's superiority, that's precisely what makes Valortec's counter-narrative so jarring, so disruptive.
Yeah.
Because when a product, one that was initially presented as the absolute epitome of modern engineering and reliability, later faces these serious fundamental safety allegations, especially a tool that lives might depend on.
The stakes couldn't be higher.
Exactly. It creates this profound sense of cognitive dissonance for consumers. You might have bought one yourself, maybe after doing a ton of research, trusting its reputation, or perhaps your police department or military unit issued it to you based on what you thought were rigorous testing and procurement processes.
Right, you assume it's vetted.
The idea that something you've invested not just money in, but your trust, your safety, maybe even your professional future, the idea that it could be inherently flawed, that's a really difficult truth to reconcile.
Yeah, it undermines everything.
It's such a stark contrast between that carefully cultivated image, the one fostered by the glossy ads and the influencer hype, and this much darker reality that Valortec claims exists. It really highlights the gap between perception and what they allege is the factual truth.
And that alleged gap, that claimed disparity, brings us directly to Valortec's incredibly bold and, some might even say radical move.
It was definitely radical in that context.
As we mentioned, December 2023, they didn't just issue a warning, or recommendation. They imposed a total, unequivocal ban on the SIG Sauer P320 from every Valortec class, range, and program.
Every single one.
This wasn't a partial ban, like maybe certain older models were excluded or you could only use it under super specific supervised conditions. No, this was absolute. If you're coming to a Valortec facility for any training, any range time, the P320 is simply not permitted. Full stop.
The magnitude of that decision for a business, especially one in the practical training side of the firearms industry, it really cannot be overstated. Valortec's entire business model revolves around training people on the safe and effective use of firearms. Prohibiting a handgun as popular and as widely owned as the P320 is, well, it's not just a policy adjustment, it's a significant financial and operational risk.
Huge risk.
Think about their student base. A large percentage of students, especially those who've recently bought a modern pistol, they likely own a P320 or have easy access to one. By banning it, Valortec is directly turning away potential customers, turning away immediate revenue.
They're literally saying no to business.
They're effectively saying, if you own this very popular firearm, sorry, you cannot train with us.
It also means they're potentially alienating a chunk of the market, right? People who might see their decision as, an overreaction or maybe even an attack on a brand they trust, a brand they've invested in.
Exactly. This is not a decision made lightly. It signals an extremely high level of perceived danger, almost like an existential threat to the safety of their students and staff.
It really makes you wonder what kind of intense internal debate must have happened. What level of accumulated evidence? What sheer, unwavering conviction would compel a company to take such a financially detrimental stance?
Yeah, what was the tipping point?
It suggests this deep-seated, just unshakable belief in the danger presented by this specific firearm and a willingness to put their money, literally, where their principles are.
Exactly. And this action, maybe more than any slogan or marketing campaign ever could, it communicates their core values directly to their student base. They aren't just saying, your life and safety come first.
They're showing it.
They're demonstrating it by absorbing that potential revenue loss, the inevitable industry backlash, which we'll get into, and the administrative hassle of enforcing such a ban. It's a statement that their guiding principle, your life and safety come first no matter what it costs us, isn't just some phrase they print on their brochures. It's the stated, very costly rationale for a profound business decision. And, such a dramatic action, naturally, it generated immediate and significant pushback, which leads us right into the heart of what Valortec describes as a pretty nasty industry conflict.
Okay, so Valortec drops this bombshell, this total ban. The backlash, as they describe it in their article, it was swift and it came from some very specific corners of the firearms world. Valortec explicitly details the groups they claim push back hard against their ban. Range owners, so-called firearms influencers, and industry insiders.
Yeah, the usual suspects, maybe?
Well, each of these groups plays a distinct yet kind of interconnected role in shaping public opinion and access within the firearms community. Can you maybe unpack the significance of each of those for us? Why those specific groups?
Sure. It's important because this isn't just a random collection of critics, right? These are strategic players in the whole firearms ecosystem. Let's take range owners first.
Okay.
They are vital gatekeepers. They control the physical spaces where people train, where they practice, where they often receive instruction. If a range owner dismisses Valortec's concerns about the P320, well, that directly impacts where a P320 owner can even go to train or shoot.
Right, it limits options.
Totally.
Yeah.
And they can also subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, influence what products get promoted or even what's allowed on their premises. They hold a lot of local power.
Okay, so range owners are gatekeepers. What about the influencers, the so-called firearms influencers, as Valortec puts it?
Right. These are the personalities, often with massive followings on social media, YouTube, their own blogs, websites, you name it. They mold perceptions, they conduct reviews, they directly recommend products to literally millions of enthusiasts.
Huge reach.
Immense reach. Their opinions carry enormous weight, especially among newer shooters who are actively seeking guidance on what to buy, what's safe, what's effective.
Yeah, people trust them, or at least they used to.
Well, that's the question Valortec raises, right? And finally, you have the industry insiders. Now, these are often the hardest to pin down specifically. They could be executives at manufacturing companies, marketing managers, distributors, maybe longtime figures with deep, deep ties throughout the firearms world, including the media side.
And the behind-the-scenes players.
Exactly. They often have access to privileged information, they can influence industry narratives, and they can certainly exert pressure, maybe subtly, maybe not so subtly. So from Valortec's perspective, the collective dismissal of their safety concerns by these powerful groups, all seemingly saying, no, the P320 is fine, that was particularly problematic.
How so?
Because it created this apparently unified, authoritative front against Valortec's claims, which could easily drown out any dissenting voices, right? Making Valortec look like outliers or alarmists, or they just didn't know what they were talking about.
Right, controlling the narrative.
Precisely. This dynamic creates an incredibly challenging environment for any company or individual trying to raise safety alarms in a niche industry like this, especially when the established powers, the big names, the influencers, the ranges, seem to be aligned against them.
Yeah, that makes sense. And this whole situation, it raises really serious questions about consumer trust, doesn't it? If the very sources consumers rely on for unbiased product info, from the places they train to the personalities they follow online, if those sources are allegedly compromised by financial interests, as Valortec claims,
Right.
well, where does someone turn for truly objective information?
That's the million-dollar question. How do you, as a consumer, navigate that landscape, especially when safety is on the line?
It forces you to take a really critical look at how information flows, how it gets disseminated within these specialized markets. And this leads directly to Valortec's incredibly blunt accusation. I mean, they lay it bare in their article. They don't mince words at all.
What do they say?
They state it plainly. They weren't protecting shooters. They were protecting their pockets.
Wow. That's direct.
It's incredibly direct. And it brings us right to the core of Valortec's ethical critique of certain parts of the industry. They make this unequivocal accusation that range owners and social media personalities were telling the public the P320 was safe, not because they genuinely believed it independently, but because SIG Sauer was paying them to say it. They specifically link this alleged behavior to sponsorship dollars and brand deals.
Okay, so that's the mechanism they're alleging. Pay for praise, essentially.
That's the accusation. It's not just a general assertion. It's a very pointed claim about how these financial relationships can allegedly directly influence expert opinions and public endorsements.
What's really interesting, or maybe disturbing, here is how pervasive this mechanism of corporate sponsorship is across so many industries, right? Not just firearms. Companies provide products, they give marketing budgets, sometimes direct payments to individuals or businesses with large followings or significant influence. And in exchange, they expect promotion, positive endorsements. It can be a totally legitimate marketing strategy in many cases.
Right.
The ethical implications become incredibly murky, almost a moral quagmire, you could say, when the product in question has documented safety concerns, especially when those concerns involve potential injury or even death.
Right. The stakes change completely.
How, then, is a consumer, just a regular person looking for good advice, supposed to distinguish between a genuine endorsement based on someone's personal objective experience and a paid promotion that's designed purely to sell a product, maybe regardless of its inherent safety?
It's incredibly difficult, almost impossible sometimes from the outside.
The source material really highlights this stark contrast drawn by Valortec. They assert, for them, sponsorship dollars and brand deals mattered more than the safety of the people they claimed to serve. And then, Valortec's counter slogan, Valortec will not be bought, serves as this direct rebuke to that alleged industry practice. It's a clear declaration of their perceived independence in a landscape they claim is totally compromised.
Yeah, it really mirrors these broader issues of trust we see everywhere, right? Trust in media, trust in marketing, across so many sectors, from pharmaceuticals to consumer electronics. What responsibility do these influencers and industry figures truly have to their audience, especially when they're dealing with products that could have direct, potentially dangerous impacts on people's lives?
It's a fundamental question.
Valortec's stance seems to be that it's incredibly difficult for consumers to tell the difference between genuine belief and a financially motivated promotion. And they emphatically assert that in this specific case with the P320 and its critics, the financial motivation was allegedly paramount for those defending it.
Okay, so while these are definitely strong accusations leveled at a segment of the industry, the real crux of Valortec's argument, and where their article truly hits hard, is in the specific evidence they present about the P320's alleged failures.
Right. This is where it gets concrete.
Exactly. This is where the claims move beyond just ethical concerns about sponsorships and get into potentially life-threatening safety defects. Valortec details some truly alarming and critical safety issues they say are inherent to the P320. And these are not like minor glitches we're talking about.
That's absolutely right. First off, they cite over 100 documented unintentional discharges nationwide. Now, let's be absolutely clear what an unintentional discharge means in the firearms world.
Yeah, it's the cardinal sin.
It is the absolute worst-case scenario, the fundamental rule you never, ever break. It means the gun fired when it was not supposed to fire, without the shooter intentionally pulling the trigger. This isn't a minor malfunction that just jams the weapon or something. It's a catastrophic failure for a tool that is explicitly designed only to fire when explicitly commanded to.
Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine a firearm discharging simply because you moved it the wrong way, or maybe adjusted your grip slightly, without your finger even being near the trigger. That completely undermines the most basic safety principle of firearms handling.
Okay, so that's over 100 unintentional discharges. What else?
Then they point to guns firing from holsters without a trigger press. Now, this suggests an even more fundamental and, frankly, terrifying flaw.
Firing while holstered.
Yes. A holstered gun is meant to be secure, right?
Right.
Its trigger should be guarded by the holster itself, making it effectively impossible to fire unless you deliberately draw it and manipulate the trigger. If a firearm can discharge while simply resting in its holster without any manual input on the trigger, well, that points to a severe design flaw in its internal safety mechanism.
That's bad. That's bad.
It's not just theoretical. It means a holstered weapon could potentially discharge while you're just wearing it, maybe sitting down in a car or just moving around normally.
Okay, that's deeply concerning. Is there more?
And finally, Valortec highlights drop fires pistols discharging when bumped or dropped. This directly addresses the concept of drop safety, which is a crucial engineering standard for any modern firearm.
Right. Guns aren't supposed to go off when you drop them.
Exactly. A pistol is supposed to be rigorously designed and tested to prevent it from firing if it's accidentally dropped or gets a sharp impact. This involves internal safeties, mechanisms that ensure the firing pin simply cannot move forward to strike the primer unless the trigger is deliberately pulled all the way through its cycle.
So a drop fire means those safeties failed?
Precisely. For a pistol to discharge when merely bumped or dropped indicates a critical failure in these absolutely essential drop safety mechanisms. So when you put these together, unintentional discharges, firing from the holster, drop fires, these aren't just technical glitches. Valortec is arguing these are potentially lethal defects that challenge the very definition of a safe firearm.
Yeah, it really is chilling to hear those specific descriptions laid out like that. It makes the alleged dangers very tangible, very immediate for anyone who might own this weapon or encounter it.
And these aren't just technical issues in a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
They've had real-world, devastating consequences, according to the source.
Indeed. And the source material moves right beyond the technical descriptions of these failures to detail the very severe real-world consequences and, importantly, the official confirmations that seem to lend undeniable weight to Valortec's claims. It states flat out that these incidents have led to officers and civilians injured, some permanently.
Permanently injured.
Permanently. This is incredibly significant. These aren't just abstract statistics. They represent real lives irrevocably altered by an alleged product failure. And when law enforcement officers, who are generally highly trained and operate in high-stress environments, are injured by their own service weapon firing unintentionally, well, that sends a powerful signal about the inherent risk of the equipment itself, potentially independent of any operator error.
Yeah, it points back to the gun. What else does Valortec mention?
Furthermore, Valortec points to multiple lawsuits resulting in multi-million-dollar payouts.
Okay, the lawsuits. That's big.
This is a crucial detail and often one that gets overlooked in casual discussion. Lawsuits that result in multi-million-dollar payouts are not just nuisance suits that get dismissed easily. They are often the outcome of extensive legal discovery processes.
Right, where lawyers dig deep.
Exactly. Where internal company documents, design specifications, test results, maybe internal emails, and expert testimonies are all scrutinized with an incredibly fine-tooth comb. Now, it's true, a settlement isn't technically an admission of guilt in court, but the substantial payouts certainly suggest a significant level of perceived liability. They're often negotiated specifically to avoid potentially even larger jury verdicts that could arise from a public trial where all that evidence gets aired.
So it's not just Valortec saying this. The legal system seems to have acknowledged issues, at least financially.
That's the implication. And then perhaps the most shocking and, you could argue, authoritative piece of information that Valortec presents in the article is this. Most recently, a U.S. Air Force soldier killed by his issued M18, a P320 variant, prompting a military-wide pause.
Killed by his issued weapon.
Yes. The M18 is a compact version of the P320. It was chosen, after a lengthy competition, as the official sidearm for the U.S. military, replacing older models. A fatality involving an issued firearm within a military context, leading to a widespread pause in its use that represents the highest possible level of official concern and action.
Absolutely. The military doesn't take action like that lightly.
Not at all. This isn't just some civilian company making claims anymore. This is a national defense institution known for its incredibly stringent testing and procurement processes, acknowledging a critical safety concern and taking immediate drastic measures because of a fatality they directly link to the firearm. This kind of action is incredibly rare, and it speaks volumes.
Okay, so you have the lawsuits, the military incident, and pause. Anything else?
Yes. One more point that ties into this broader narrative of external validation. Valortec states that even the FBI's own reviews confirm the concerns.
The FBI.
At the FBI. A premier federal law enforcement agency with vast technical expertise, a state-of-the-art ballistics lab, exceptionally rigorous testing protocols for firearms. If their independent reviews confirmed safety issues, corroborating the problems Valortec is highlighting, well, that further legitimizes the claims being made, not just by Valortec, but by the injured parties and the lawsuits.
Wow. So when you stack all that up, the individual injuries, the multi-million-dollar lawsuits, a military fatality leading to a pause, and apparently FBI confirmations, it becomes really hard to reconcile that with the idea that some industry figures were still allegedly downplaying the dangers.
It certainly paints a stark picture, and this perceived discrepancy leads us directly back to Valortec's unwavering stand and the price they say they paid for it.
Valortec's article really seems to drive home this idea that their decision, their ban on the P320, it came with a very real, very tangible financial cost. They weren't naive about the repercussions at all. They explicitly acknowledge in the piece that banning the P320 cost us business.
Right. They put it right out there.
It's a direct acknowledgement that this principled stand they took had an immediate, measurable impact on their bottom line. No sugarcoating it.
And they actually detail the negative reactions they anticipated with remarkable clarity. They knew, for example, that some shooters would be upset.
Well, yeah, that seems like a given, right?
Totally. If you've invested, maybe hundreds, even thousands of dollars in a P320, maybe you chose it as your preferred training platform, or perhaps you even use it for professional duty.
Yeah.
Finding out you suddenly can't use it at a prominent, respected training facility like Valortec, that would be frustrating, inconvenient, sure, but it might even feel like a personal indictment of your own judgment, your choice of firearm.
Yeah, people get attached to their gear. What else did they expect?
Valortec also explicitly expected that certain ranges would blacklist us for calling it out. Now, that is a significant threat in what's often a relatively tight-knit industry.
Blacklisting, how does that work?
Well, relationships, referrals, sometimes shared clientele, they matter immensely in the training world. Being blacklisted by other ranges could potentially sever critical partnerships, maybe limit their access to shared facilities if they ever needed them, and it could certainly harm their reputation among industry peers who might prioritize maintaining good relations with major manufacturers like SIG Sauer over rocking the boat.
Okay, so upsetting customers, getting blacklisted by peers.
And they anticipated that influencers, the same ones cashing checks from SIG, as Valortec puts it, would whisper that Valortec was overreacting.
Ah, the whisper campaign.
Exactly. This speaks to the immense power of narrative and reputation management within the industry, where influential voices, allegedly paid by the manufacturer, according to Valortec, could easily try to discredit Valortec's position, paint them as extreme, maybe unscientific, maybe even malicious, or just trying to get attention.
So when you add all that up, the economic realities for a specialized training company like this, losing immediate business, facing potential blacklisting from industry partners, and enduring these concerted reputational attacks from influential figures. I mean, these aren't just minor inconveniences.
No, these actions could genuinely be devastating to a company's long-term viability. It really highlights the profound courage it takes, or maybe just sheer conviction, for a business to knowingly incur these significant costs purely for the sake of a principle they hold dear.
It also highlights those incredibly difficult choices businesses sometimes face, doesn't it? When ethical concerns clash directly, powerfully, with profitability.
Absolutely. In a competitive market, maintaining relationships with major brands, especially those with deep pockets for sponsorships and advertising, that can be crucial for survival or growth. So Valortec's decision, viewed through that lens, it really implies an immense pressure to conform within these tight-knit industries, where speaking out against a dominant product or a powerful brand can have severe commercial repercussions.
In Valortec's defiant stance on this point, it's just so simple and powerful in the article. They just say, we don't care.
Yeah, that cuts through everything.
It signifies this unwavering commitment to their principles over any commercial viability. It asserts that their core values, as they state them, are simply non-negotiable.
Which, brings us right to the very heart of Valortec's declared ethical framework, their guiding philosophy as they present it. Their core message is this direct, uncompromising declaration that seems to frame their entire operation.
What's the core message?
Valortec will never compromise the safety of our students, staff, or community. They position this not merely as some corporate mission statement hanging on a wall, but as a foundational belief. An unshakable bedrock that dictates every business practice, every decision they make.
So safety above all else, literally.
That's the claim. They assert unequivocally, quote, "There is no price tag on human life. There is no sponsorship deal, no profit margin, no favor that will make us put an unsafe weapon on our range."
That's incredibly strong language.
It is. And this statement explicitly contrasts their philosophy with the alleged actions of others in the industry. Valortec suggests, pretty directly, that some entities care more about being in the good graces of gun companies than protecting their students.
So they're drawing a moral line in the sand.
Absolutely. It speaks to a perceived moral failing where financial incentives or just maintaining cozy industry connections allegedly supersede the fundamental duty of care that any training organization arguably should have towards its students.
The concept of integrity in business, especially when public safety is directly involved, is really paramount here, isn't it?
Completely. Valortec clearly positions themselves as an outlier in their narrative, a company willing to, quote, "take the criticism, the lost revenue, and the hard road over being bought."
It raises that important question again for consumers in any industry, really. How do you identify companies that genuinely prioritize safety over profit? It's easy for any business to claim they put customers first.
Talk is cheap.
Right. But Valortec points to their direct, costly action, banning a hugely popular product, despite the financial hit, as tangible proof of their commitment. It makes you think about the role of individual leaders, too. The article mentions Herfel, described as a distinguished firearms instructor, 30-year career, profound dedication to safety. How important are leaders like that in upholding these values within an organization, especially when they're facing significant financial pressure?
It suggests leadership is critical. That it's not just policy, but conviction from the top. And Valortec's strong declarative language throughout the article, phrases like, "our core values are not for sale," they act as both a self-defining statement and a powerful challenge to others in the industry. It's almost a call for accountability.
And Valortec doesn't just act and explain their reasoning internally. They send a very direct, very unvarnished message out to the community, to the firearm owners themselves.
Yeah, their message to the community, as laid out in this article, it's anything but subtle. It's a direct, it feels urgent, and it's a very pointed call to action, particularly aimed at those individuals who currently own or carry a SIG Sauer P320.
They don't beat around the bush.
Not at all. Valortec urges them, quote, to confront the reality. This isn't some vague general safety advisory like, be careful with all firearms. No, this is a specific, targeted appeal to individuals who have made a significant investment, both emotional and financial, in this particular firearm. People who often trust it, literally, with their lives. And what makes their message so impactful, maybe so difficult to just dismiss out of hand, is how they directly counter any potential narrative that might try to label their claims as just conspiracy theories.
How do they do that?
They state with absolute clarity, quote, "The lawsuits, the injuries, the deaths, these aren't conspiracy theories. They're facts backed by courts, investigations, and now even the military."
Okay, so they're pointing to external validation.
Critically important. They are appealing directly to established, credible sources of information that are incredibly difficult to just refute or wave away. You've got the outcomes of legal proceedings where evidence is tested under oath. You have independent investigations conducted by authoritative bodies. And you have official actions taken by a highly authoritative institution like the U.S. military. They're saying, don't just take our word for it. Look at these independent findings.
That's a powerful strategy. It aims to solidify their claims not just as opinion, but as indisputable truths, forcing P320 owners to seriously reevaluate their firearm and maybe question the information they've received about it from other sources, like those influencers or ranges Valortec criticized earlier.
Exactly. And the practical implications for a P320 owner hearing this, they're immediate and they're profound. Imagine, having spent hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars on a firearm you genuinely thought was reliable. Perhaps you carry it every single day for self-defense, or it's your issued duty weapon. And then you hear these stark warnings backed up by references to lawsuits and military actions.
It would definitely make you pause.
How do individuals process information that so directly challenges their existing beliefs or questions the safety of something they literally trust their life with? It puts the onus squarely back on the individual owner, doesn't it? To seek out further information, maybe to interrogate their own sources more critically, and ultimately to make a deeply personal, informed decision about their own safety and the safety of those around them.
Yeah. And this urgent call to action, it's then underscored by their overall philosophy, right? That unwavering commitment they keep talking about, putting people first.
Absolutely. Valortec's entire stance, everything they argue in this article, it kind of culminates in this powerful rallying cry that directly addresses you, the listener, the consumer, the firearm owner, they say. Your safety, your family, and your future are worth more than corporate marketing and paid influencers.
That really sums it up.
It does. That statement succinctly encapsulates their central thesis. It draws this clear, undeniable line in the sand between their perceived integrity and the alleged purely commercial interests of others in the industry. They are essentially telling consumers, look, don't let slick advertising campaigns or financially motivated endorsements compromise what truly matters most, which is your well-being and the lives of those you might need to protect.
And they present this not just as a one-time decision about the P320, but as an ongoing commitment. Right.
That's right. They pledge to keep speaking out, keep banning unsafe platforms, and keep putting people over profit. This phrasing outlines how Valortec intends to differentiate itself going forward. By consistently prioritizing the end user, the individual student, the person relying on the tool, over any brand loyalties or potential financial gain from manufacturers.
And their ultimate goal, their foundational goal, is stated with this stark simplicity but also profound gravity.
Yeah, they say. Our students go home alive, and no brand loyalty will ever change that.
That's powerful.
It is. And this commitment, as you mentioned earlier, it's further buttressed by the background of Herfeld, the author of the article, presumably a key figure, maybe the owner at Valortec, described again as that distinguished firearms instructor, 30-year career, profound dedication to safety. His credentials definitely lend significant authority and credibility to Valortec's stance. It frames this not just as a business making a detached financial calculation.
Right, it's personal.
It seems personal. It suggests an organization led by someone with deep hands-on experience and a stated, long-standing ethical commitment to safety above all else. Which brings us right to their final, powerful, and very concise slogan. It truly encapsulates their entire message in this article.
What is it?
Valortec training, we can't be bought. Your life is worth more than a brand. It's a direct challenge, not just within firearms, but it challenges consumers in any field to empower themselves, to seek out truly independent information, especially when their health or well-being is potentially at stake. Because the long-term impact on a brand's reputation, when such serious allegations are made, and then seemingly corroborated by legal actions, by military responses, that impact can be profound and incredibly lasting. #outro.
So we've really taken a deep dive today into a truly compelling and honestly a pretty disturbing story emerging from the firearms industry. We've explored the surprising claims of significant dangers surrounding a widely popular firearm, the SIG Sauer P320, a gun that, like we said, was once heralded as the absolute future.
Yeah, the narrative shift is stark.
It really is. We've dissected Valortec's costly and defiant stand against what they allege are overwhelming industry pressures. And perhaps most importantly, we've heard about the undeniable human cost outlined in their report, from serious injuries to, tragically, a fatality involving a military service member. This really paints a picture of a clear, alleged battle between the relentless pursuit of sales figures and market share and an unwavering, principled commitment to safety, no matter the cost.
And maybe as you, listening, reflect on this specific case, this specific firearm, this specific company's actions, consider a broader question, one that extends far beyond just this pistol or even the firearms industry itself.
What's the question?
In an age where information is just everywhere, it's abundant, easily accessible with a few clicks, but where allegiances can often be bought, where influence can be wielded, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, how do you critically evaluate the advice and the endorsements you receive about the products you trust the most, especially those products that directly impact your safety, your health, your well-being?
That's a crucial question for everyone today.
It really is. And what does it truly mean at the end of the day for a company, or maybe even for an individual, to truly embody that principle of putting people over profit, particularly when they're faced with significant financial pressure or reputational attacks, or the risk of being ostracized by their peers?
Yeah. What does that integrity actually look like in practice?
Exactly. It's a question worth pondering, I think, not just for the firearms community, but really for any industry, any situation where safety is paramount and where trust, genuine, earned trust, is ultimately the most valuable currency there is.